I've been walking with my shades on for so long, I can't seem to get them back on. 'Cause ooh, how I fell in love, couldn't see it coming, blasting my stereo. I can feel it coming, you on my radio. All I'm hearing is a song. Judge, don't you ever say you're sorry. I don't mind if you don't mind it, sharing all your secrets with me. 'Cause ooh, how I fell in love, couldn't see it coming, blasting my stereo. I can feel it coming, you on my radio. All I'm hearing is a song.
Hello. Good morning, good evening, good day, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whenever you're choosing to watch this. Hello. My name's Brian Haire. I am here with Free Salon Education doing our live show. I've got Matt back over here helping out, watching our chat, making sure that we keep things moving, because that happens. Yeah, Matt, before I jump into everything that I'm doing, your quick rundown on chat rules, how we like that done.
All right, guys, so a couple things. If you have a question, type Q, put in your question in the chat. And that way, we're seeing the chat kind of from everywhere. So make sure that you're just typing a Q, put in your question, and then I'll ask it to Brian as we go. Just make sure you get as involved as possible in the chat. I don't care if you just type letters, whatever it is. The more you guys chat and talk, the bigger this room will grow. That's how social media works. So this is a free class. All we ask is that you share the class and you get involved and be a part of it. We love building this community, and that's kind of what it's all about. So type Q, put in your question. If you have any other things, also the OGs in the room, the people that have been watching us for a long time, and they're always involved in these classes. If people in the chat have a question about where to buy the tools or what our website is or what the app is, just please type it in the chat. Help us out. Tell people where to go to kind of get more involved in the free salon education community. But you guys got a good class coming up here with Brian, so I'm super excited to have this a weekly thing. So here we go.
All right, so it's me. And I was talking to Matt, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I really wanted to do a class of just Balayage 101, not getting too hard into like an exact technique or an exact look or anything like that. I just wanted to like take it all the way back, because I feel like my heart just lives so much with balayage, because I was thinking over this story to remember to tell for this. So back I want to say it was almost 8 years ago. It was definitely like the first year that I was working here. I had heard of balayage, but there was like nothing on it. And I remember when I tried to Google it, the only images I could find was this newscaster who, like, I forget where she was, like America, Midwest somewhere, and she wanted highlights, and her hairdresser said, well, let me do this. And there were two pictures. There was a picture of her after and a picture of the lightener just like sitting on her roots, and I was fascinated by it. And there was no education online for it, so I just started doing it on mannequins and figuring it out. And I'll never forget the morning that I worked up the nerve to lie to my client and say that I've been doing this for years. Just let me like throw a couple of these highlights on you. And I like held my breath and a hope and a prayer. And then when I rinsed her out, I loved how it looked. So I started, doing it a little bit more and coming up with a technique, discovering that certain things came out looking better. And then there started to become more education on it in general. I remember, Candy Shaw was one of my first ones, and it made me feel good watching her videos, knowing that what I was doing seemed to be done for a reason, because she was doing it that way too. And I was like, okay, good. So this works. And over the years, I've just found ways to tweak it and hone it and really turn it into something that no matter what the situation is, you find a way to make it work. That being said, I am going to go over what products I'm using today to create this, but I don't want you to think that that's the only way. When I taught myself how to do this 8 years ago, balayage bleach didn't even exist. Like, I had to do this on, with foil bleach. So it is possible. But today I'm hopefully going to go over the kinds of things that you need to just tweak. So whatever your situation is, you're going to be able to get the job done. So this is my lovely model. This is my after lasagna, as that's becoming a thing now that I guess. I left her hair mostly straight because I didn't want it to look like I was hiding anything. We've discovered that in comments before, but I couldn't do it perfectly straight because I just don't love perfectly straight hair, so I at least did curl the front. So everyone that thinks that balayage always has to result in an ombre, I divided this head down the middle and did it specifically to show you that it doesn't have to be. So on one half of the head, I've done it in the form of just like bands of color, almost like you would expect from a foil highlight, like a weave. And on the other, I did all V-shaped highlights that do result in a little bit more of an ombre, natural, like darker to lighter look, just to show you that you can go both. So I'll show you the stripe side first. And so the the way that we get these mannequins colored is I take a blonde mannequin and then I color over it with like a demi or a glaze first, so that when I highlight it, the highlights really pop. So you'll notice in some places it does look a little strong. That doesn't mean that your balayage is going to come out stripy. Just know that it can if you want it to. If you're looking for something bolder, you got this. So this is the side that if you're transitioning from a typical foil, they don't necessarily want all their ends lighter. They like an actual highlight. That's why I wanted to make sure that this side was done as well, because you need to understand that balayage is a way to apply a highlight. It's not a specific highlight. Does that make sense? Because people are like, oh, I want a balayage. Well, balayage is a technique. It's if you want highlights and you want them hand painted. When I talked to my guest about these highlights, I just had this conversation last night. You know, my client came in, and new client, she's explaining to me that she likes to stay on top of getting her hair done, but she's getting ready to send a kid off to college, so she's not looking to necessarily go broke and be in here every 5 minutes getting her hair done. So I said this is going to be a really great technique for her, because we can give her the pow, the pizzazz, like the real exciting energy that highlights have, but in a nice soft way that if she wants to wait 3 months to get her hair touched up, it's just going to become a different look, not necessarily a look grown out and sad. So that's one way that you can talk to your guests about it. If you know, money or time or anything like that, that's why this makes a good alternative. If that's not a reason that's on the table, I love doing this with guests because it always just looks effortless. You know, that hand paint, it gives it, rather than, you know, a very formal start line like a foil does, it just sort of like becomes a highlight. You go from whatever the root is into that light energy. So over on this side of the mannequin, I definitely went a little stronger using V-shaped sections, which we'll go over momentarily, that end up resulting in mostly having lighter ends, which I am a really big fan of anyway in color, just because naturally that's what hair is going to do. If you just apply, you know, like a single process roots to somebody and never do the ends, naturally they're going to lighten through the ends just like hair does normally. So whatever your look that you're going for, be it, you know, highlights while still having their base color running throughout it, even in the lengths, we've got that option. Or if you're looking for more of a kind of an ombre look, we're going to go over that option as well. So I'm putting the lasagna away for a minute. And I've made an executive decision for us. For as long as possible, I'm going to keep coloring the same mannequin. So this was our beautiful foil model from last week. She loves her highlights, but now she wants to try something a little bit more. She wants to add a little more to this, another layer. So this pretty much looks like, you know, this is how people come in. It's air dried, and they're like, sorry, I didn't wash my hair for a week. I was getting my hair done. That's her today. So fun. She does still have her center part. That is not because of pressure from Gen Z. It's just because that's where her hair falls. So don't get that twisted. I am going to do the same thing. On one side, I'm going to show you my stripes. On one side, I'm going to show you my V's. But first and foremost, I'm going to show you my consistency. I didn't mix it up yet because consistency is something that is super, super important. I am using Skylights from Paul Mitchell. So this is a clay-based lightener that's made for balayage. Now, what that means, the whole clay base, what you're expecting from that, if you're using a clay base, you need to understand that in your application, you need to go a little bit heavier with, well, I'll show you. Clay base means like it's going to harden on the outside somewhat, creating a little bit of an environment for the highlight to lift. So to answer Tara's question, the difference between them, clay lighteners tend to not swell, which is nice, because back when I was using just regular old lightener on doing balayage, you had to be very, very careful and cautious because wherever you painted it, lightener does like to puff up a little bit, and you didn't want it touching hair that you weren't intending for it to touch. Because back, you know, when I got this whole started There was nothing to put in between your sections, just like I'm not going to use today because I want you to see everything. Personally, when I'm using clay lightener for my balayage, which is typically all I use anymore, now that I don't have to use a regular lightener, I like a nice thick consistency. I like to think of it like, I don't want to say spackle because that's too thick. I actually just used spackle recently and that's way too thick. I like toothpaste, maybe. Like that nice toothpaste that you've gotten wet, that you're about to brush your teeth with. Like that few seconds that toothpaste before it becomes foam, that's what I like to see. I'll show you in my bowl here. Notice I'm using a little rubber spatula. It was just a trick that I got from Lacey Worley years ago that I absolutely loved. It does whip the lightener more so than aerate like a whisk does. In my mind, it just comes out such a great consistency. Plus, it helps conserve. So like you're not wasting a ton because I am able to scrape everything off the side of the bowl and get my nice little toothpaste consistency. So you see nothing's coming out. It's good. We're in there. I like this consistency because it's going to stick to the hair as I apply it, but be thick enough that it's going to give me a really nice highlight. All right, so.
Isn't it Dairy Queen or something that like they turn the ice cream upside down?
Yeah, I was the Blizzards, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at that. Yeah, well, that also means I can't get it through a straw, so thanks. Other than Dairy Queen, do we have any questions to start off? We doing all right?
So there's a question from Michelle just saying, how do you feel about teasing? And I think hair.
That's fine. I mean, last week I was doing some teasing highlights. Typically, when I tease, because it's giving you that softness, it's built in, I'll just go ahead and do a foil because it's going to soften that line for you anyway. And then, you know, you've got like the incubation of the foil because that's the one thing with balayage is you don't get a ton of incubation. So it really is, that doesn't mean you can't get somebody light. It just means that you really have to pay attention to your application. So we'll start going over application instead of just talking about it.
Let's find our mannequin placement here. See the overhead?
Yeah.
See if you can push that to the center. This would be fun. Oh, good job. Nailed it.
I play video games. I know how this works.
There we go. That's good.
I'm a master of the right thumb camera controller on all video games, so we're good.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going off of like I said, this isn't necessarily about a placement today, but I like to do my balayage off of whatever part they come in with because generally that means that's how they're going to wear their hair because they at least did that day. So you all know by now I'm a huge Money Piece fan, so I like to go off their part and really just hit that hard. Okay.
Question.
Answer.
Do you increase developer strength to clay lightener?
Generally, I always use 40, period. Like, because I do it so much, I've learned what to expect from that. Right now, this is only 10 volume. That is just because I'm not looking to, like, go hard on her. I'm really just looking to use her as my model. Like, I'm not going to be this is not going to have a finished look. That's why I did that mannequin. I just did 10 so that I can continue to use her for many weeks to come until she just looks a haggard mess with a million applications on her. But generally, I just use 40 because you need a higher volume to get lift because you're not getting incubation. So, just go 40. Just do it. I'm usually a 10 to 20 in foils and a 40 to 40 in balayage. Cool?
Cool.
I thought so. All right, I'm just getting myself a nice, decent panel to work on before I turn this around and show you. It's beautiful foil work in here. My goodness. Why would she switch to balayage? All right, which side do you want me to come?
Whatever. How are you painting?
You know what? I feel like I'm right-handed, so I feel like I should be coming this way.
Yeah.
Shout out to all my lefties, like my brother. So with a lot of clay lighteners, when you mix it up momentarily, then it's going to get a little bit stiffer. So keep that in mind, because I want it stiff, but I do need it still workable. If it's too thick, then that's not going to be, it's not doing us any favors. So I've got my paddle. Give myself some to work on. Working with a tool like this is great because it does help for moving quickly, and it just keeps lightener right there, so I can just keep working. Grab some and go, rather than chasing a bowl around, every time I need to apply more. All right, so for starters, we're just gonna start on some nice bands just to show you my application. One thing that I see happen a lot is that people think that balayage application is smashing color into your section. The way that I like to word it, just to get a better visual of what you're planning on, I want balayage, I want the hair to take the lightener off my brush. So I'm not pressing, I'm just getting close enough for the color to come off. Think of it like the bristles shouldn't even touch the hair.
You're going to want to spin.
More?
No, like you're going to want to go to that side.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Oh, yeah, because you'll see the ridge better. All right. That's why we're a team. Because you've been doing this for 1,000 years. We're just going to do this. Bear with me, folks. Okay. So now you'll see. I'm just going to grab some hair, grab myself a little section. When you're deciding how big of a little section to grab, that's going to be based off of, one, how you want it to look, but two, also the density. Like if they have a lower density of hair and you grab, a small little chunk like this, but you're able to see through it, your balayage might get a little spotty. So grab a section that once you pinch to apply is going to hold firm. So what I was talking about with my application, I'm going to get some color on the brush. Now, where are we at? I'm trying to get that just right. So you can see the lightener is a little piled up. Nice trickery. So you see the lightener is piled up on the brush. That's what's going to be being applied to the hair. That little dome. We're going to wipe the bristles close to the hair so that the hair takes the lightener off. Cool? So again, keep a nice firm, give yourself something to really work on here, and then let the hair just take the lightener off the brush. I'll start a couple inches from the scalp, and I'll sweep towards myself while moving closer to the root until I've decided that's as close as I want my highlight. You can get right up to the head if that's what you're trying to do. You can give yourself a little bit of space for a rooted look. You decide exactly where this is going to go. For the control freaks out there like me, this is a really great method of doing highlights. So I'm applying it, watching to make sure that anytime you get these little jump skips that happen a lot on highlights with mannequins, just take that off. No big. And then just come down with the hair, follow wherever you're holding with your fingers. And then I use the other side of my little paddle. Keep in mind, this is where you get to make your decisions on how you want this to turn out. If you're looking for lighter ends just all over throughout, then as you come down to the bottom, what I'll do is I'll spread out the section a little bit with my brush and make sure that I've got lightener applied on top, underneath, throughout. So now this highlight is going to go from being applied on top as it comes down. Now it's saturating the full ends. So think about what that's going to look like when it's done. And then you go, yeah, that's going to look good. I like that. And then I'll use my little brush to just help guide it.
Is that how you say that?
No, that's the only way to say it. If that's the only thing you take away from today, then you're welcome. I like to use, my tools because I don't want, oh yeah, that's something that I didn't go over that section. So we'll go over it in the next section. Elevation, also very important. when you are applying balayage, do not forget that eventually you're going to be up towards the top of the head and you're going to have highlights down low. And this is out in the open. It's not in a foil. So you need to be careful because you put all this thought into how this is going to come out. You applied this so that it's going to look gorgeous. The last thing you want to do is smash hair on top of that highlight, because if it touches it, it's going to start bleaching and it's going to turn weird because it's unintentional. So that's where elevation comes in. I like to get everything elevated as straight off the head 90 as you can from where it lives. Not 90 like always 90, 90 from where it's coming out of the head. Straight off. So what that's going to do as I apply my lightener onto this section, when I let it go, it's going to hold together and it's going to cause that section to buckle a little bit so that it won't press down on the section beneath it. We'll do another one just to show you what I'm talking about. See, little kiss. It happens. It's going to happen every single time. You just got to keep an eye out, be aware of what you're doing. You can't really check out while you're doing this because you're designing something that's working on this person's haircut. So again, got that nice straight out elevation that lets it gently lay down. And that way, if there's a highlight underneath, it's not smashing against it.
And I think another thing we talked about, Brian, because you do use like a wrap or a saran wrap.
Yes.
Which we're going to show that application next week, right? And next week's?
Yeah.
They'll be able to see that.
Yeah.
This is more about the painting.
Yeah, this is more about like how I like to see this get done.
Or like me, I don't ever use wrap when I balayage. So like I use this technique to kind of keep it away from the other hair.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like using the wrap. Well, really I just like using the wrap, period. But especially if I'm not just like accenting. If I'm going through and like doing if that's their color, is just a full head of balayage and there's just tons and tons of painting, having something in between is gonna just keep things in order. Okay, so now we've gone over consistency, elevation. Now the other really big one is saturation. So when somebody asks like 40, a lot of question marks, like that does seem kind of extreme because we don't typically use 40 as hairdressers all the time. It just seems like, well, it's there, but like, when do you use that beyond beauty school? Well, now is when you use that. So I'll mix 40 and I will change the lift that I can expect from each highlight based on my saturation. So in kind of going back to what I was saying about how clay lighteners will almost dry out on top, creating an environment underneath that little dome of lightener on the hair, when that dries out, if there's hair that's a part of that, it's not going to keep getting lighter. It has to be in the little environment to keep getting lighter. So if you're looking for a highlight that's not necessarily going to blast super, super bright, that's cool. You can still do that with your 40. I will show you. Oh, Carly. Olive Garden since 8 years old. All right, so in my application, applying a little bit more pressure isn't going to make it lighter. It's actually going to make it less light. So it's kind of counterintuitive for how you would think, but I'll show you what I mean. So I've got my little dome, and in applying it, if I press firmer, that's when you'll actually start to see the hair come through on the highlight that I've painted. If you notice these other sections, it looks like frosting on a cake or a cupcake. You can't really see any individual hairs. But in here, by pressing firmer, I can see those hairs coming through. So what that means, that's going to give me less lift. I can't really break it down and say exactly this many PSI of pressure is going to give you like a 10 volume versus a 40. I'm just explaining to you that the easier you can see the hair in there, the less lift you're going to get. And you get that look by pressing firmer. So a good hard smoosh, and I can see that hair. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes you're not looking to necessarily blast somebody up to an 11. This will just give a nice little on-tone bump. I can't guarantee that. This will just give your color a bump. Don't come for me when you accidentally get warmth.
Did you see that somebody commented 40 with a bunch of exclamation points and question marks?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought that was random. So
No, I saw it.
I was trying to find it as you were saying it. I was like searching through. I'm like, where was that comment? That's hilarious. And then I couldn't find it, but.
No, I saw it, and you're right, because before this, like 40 was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I only use that on myself when I want to fry my hair off. And now it goes just as fast as 20 volume does in the salon because we've discovered. So I don't know, can you,
Yeah.
let me turn this to see. I just want you to see the difference in how these two look sitting side by side. So this highlight over here is going to give you significantly more lift. I mean, both of those really, because while it's applied, you're not really seeing the hairs themselves through the lightener, whereas over here I can see quite a bit of the hair through. So this, when that outside starts to dry up a little bit, it's going to stay moist, forgive the word, inside, so it's going to keep lifting until I wash it off, because once most clay lighteners dry out, they stop working. So doing this, that's going to dry out much faster because it's a thinner application. I don't have like a blub of lightener on there. So that's going to give me, it's going to lift, but it's not going to go as light as that. It's going to stop when it decides. It's going to stop when I decide. That's the difference.
Leah's got a good question. During the application, when you heavily saturate, can you bricklay to get that dimension within the hair?
Oh, absolutely. Next week, I'm going to be doing a class that's going to be like more targeting spots on the head of like really good spots to hit for highlights. So yeah, bricklaying is cool. I like to keep mine, I like to keep my highlights throughout. I want it to look like a nice natural look. And I think that's one reason that I love this so much. Like, bricklaying keeps it from looking too uniform versus, when you do like a typical section that they teach us in beauty school for foiling, then okay, it all looks, and perm, same thing. If getting in there and like changing up where it is what makes it look more natural. All right, so I'll do one more. I don't know why I just took that down. I'll do one more of these guys on my stripes with a little less. So when I take this section, I'm also not painting the whole top of it. You notice, like, I'm just grabbing a random, I don't even know what that shape is at the root because I don't care, because it doesn't really matter. I'm looking for a natural look, so don't stress yourself out. Like, I understand that certain people need, like, super details. Well, this is someplace where you get to decide. If you want that to be a star shape and you want to carve out a star shape, like, you do it. You make your little star loving heart happy. I just grab a nice little section, and then I like to work off of the edge of it. Rather than painting the whole top, I'm just going to work on the little edge. Yes, we're going to saturate underneath in the next section with the V-shape applications. So again, in here, we're going to combine the two. I'm going to press a little bit firmer up at the root for a little less lift so I can see the hair coming through. Grab your guys. Just keep it. So now that won't lift and we'll be fine. I'm going to give a little more pressure up here so I don't get as much lift, but then as I travel down the section, I am going to start lightening how firm I press so that the hair just takes it off the brush. I just go, here you go. Have some lightener. It's like a high five, but a transfer of lightener. And a nice little paint over the top. And now you can see in one section, let me try to turn it. In one section, we've gone from a lighter application into a much heavier one. So that will do the same thing when it's done lifting. It's going to have like, let's start lifting, and then, yeah, blonde, what's the... These are all very technical terms.
You wouldn't believe the amount of people were saying just from one class with you, how many t-shirts that need to be put out. Based on, no one's ever said that to me on one of my classes, but After yours, I'm getting messages. That should be on a t-shirt. Lasagna should be a t-shirt.
Oh my God, I'm down.
I'll give you royalties on the shirts.
There you go. That's what I love about just like the difference of how Matt and I do things. Matt's very structured and technical in like every aspect of how he does hair. And I am not so much. Just because that's how, this is what I do. I like this. And my verbiage.
When we're in the salon working next to each other, I'm pretty much just over there shaking my head the whole time. And he's having a grand old time.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
I remember the first salon I ever worked at when I was just like a cute little apprentice. There was this extraordinarily talented. I've never seen anybody that can do scissor over comb like this woman, this Russian woman. And she was very serious all the time. And she said, when I get on the floor, she's like, when you get on the floor, I want you next to me. I said, oh, I was so flattered. I was like, okay, why? She goes, I don't like to talk to my clients. You'll entertain them. I was like, no. Okay, cool. You're welcome.
That is the truth, though.
Okay, so I'm not pressing down. Normally, this is where I would put something in between if that's what you're into. But I don't have any because I ran out because I actually do use it all the time, and I think it's coming in today.
Wait, read this comment.
What is it? Oh my God, that's so funny. All right, well, here you go. Show them the video. Be like, I like this, or don't do this, whatever. Be like, could I have stripes over V's? Because now we're going to go over V's, so get ready. Don't sign anything yet. So the V's are how I originally really got into balayage because ombre was super huge back then. That's what my first video that I ever put out was me doing balayage without a balayage lightener, creating an ombre. So this is going to give more of the ombre effect if you so choose to do it that way, or in certain sections if you choose to do it that way. Whatever. Use your little artistic heart. So now, instead of just grabbing a random chunk, I'm going to take a V. So I've got my point here. I'm going to make a point here and then dip it down in the middle. It's not going to be an exact V or a capital V or whatever. It can be a U if you want. Just get the point of what I'm saying. So I've got point, thick in the middle. Yeah. The opposite of Sir Mix-a-Lot's preferences. Okay, so I am now giving myself a little bit more space to work because I'm creating these V's. So a way to think about this when you're doing a V, do I need to tilt her head so you can see it a little better? Or is this an overhead kind of thing? Overhead might work. Let me just move her clip. I'm going to zoom in. All right, and then move her. Oh, sucker.
There it is.
Okay, so when you're creating this type of look, because now we are going to be saturating the ends, I'm going to be applying a highlight on one edge, I'm going to be applying a highlight on the other edge, and then they're going to come together and lighten through the ends of the hair. So what you need to take into consideration is where you're going to hold the hair, where you're going to pinch. Because wherever you've got your pinch, from there through the ends is going to be your lightness. So if you're looking to make their hair super light, then you're going to pinch closer to the root. If you want a little bit more of their root color to show, then you're going to want to slide down the section a little bit. Because then this is where the two blonde highlights will converge and then create light ends. Also keep in mind, if that's what you're going for, maybe considering a different application, because coming all the way down here leaves you a very bouncy section. And like the bouncier this is, the more chance there is for things to get wild. So I'm going to come about halfway. Get my little dome going. I like it. And then just let the hair take it. Take it. Work up towards the root a little bit. Clean up after myself. Whoever is calling me right now, rude. I'm working.
They obviously don't know you that well.
Yeah.
They should know you.
It's probably like someone calling me for my like COVID vaccine. I'm like, I'm busy doing highlights. So along each edge of the section, same principles as before. Now we're just doubling it up. So where these two blonde lines come together, I just let them come together. Don't force it. Don't because then things just get a little wild and crazy. If you let them just come together where your fingers are holding the hair, you're going to be so happy with how much more natural this comes out. Now, when it comes to saturation, because we are creating a nice dark to light look, you might want to consider saturating underneath. You don't have to, but if you do want to, this is how I like to go about that. Make sure that you've got buku lightener on top because we're about to spread open this section and get all that hair in between. So I'll use my brush to transfer it over to my little paddle, and then I just kind of just lightly spread it. If you bust it apart, then you're going to be screwing all this up, but I just lightly spread it so that I know that I'm getting in there, and then just give it that nice same saturation that you were giving the rest of the highlight. As I'm slowly dragging it through, I can feel it picking up highlight from underneath as well. Don't skimp. Do it right. And then I'll just check. Yeah, I'm good. We're pretty saturated. I don't know. I'm going to switch me to... I almost got it. I got this. And then I check. Hold on. I'll do it this way. So you can see that underneath, using the corner of the paddle kept it from being a harsh line. So now underneath, it's also going to diffuse and lighten as it gets through to the end. I have never seen a balayage video do that. So you're welcome. So again, use your visualization. We're very visual people, hairdressers. So look at this and understand what that's going to do highlight-wise. She's going to keep her root color, but she's going to have it broken up by some nice highlights. And then as you go through the lengths of the hair, it's just naturally, going to get lighter. So, does that make sense? We good?
We good.
All right, I'll do another one. Playing with saturation. Again, I've got my shape, be it a U or a V or W, I don't care.
I feel like Lisa has a great question.
What's up, Lisa?
What if you're on the slower side of applying? How do you control the first section from over-processing?
Well, unlike my class last week, because I had that exact same thing, I feel you. This does take time to get like your groove. Starting with the back is always great because, you know, if for whatever reason it does take longer than you expected and you're worried about over-processing, then you can always rinse the back. I've noticed, hold on, I'm going to say something really bold. I got to make sure that I can back it up.
Uh-oh.
I can't think of any cases right now, so I'm just going to cover my own A and say very seldom have I over-processed someone to the point of, oh my God, my heart stops when doing balayage. It's happened much more with on-the-scalp bleach, and it's happened much more with foils than it's ever happened with balayage because it does tend to be gentler because it doesn't have the incubation that a foil does to just keep going forever. I also am a big proponent of using like Olaplex or whatever your preferred little bond building, whatever, just because I do have so many people that I'm doing this on them every month, every 6 weeks, whatever. So I am painting lightener over lightener over lightener because the greatest thing about doing a balayage highlight is that it does look really pretty the first time you do it, but every time you do it, it looks better because you're adding another layer of dimension to it. And so it's just getting like areas where it's brighter, areas where you're starting to get more depth. It's a really, really cool technique. So just, you know, take it slow. Don't rush yourself. Don't freak out because It really is about how you are applying it that's going to make you however happy you're going to be at the end. All right, cool. I'm into it. Thanks. Glad you like it. So on this section, again, I'm going to play. We'll do this side with more pressure, therefore less lift. When I do normal clients, I keep this section much tighter. This mannequin is not holding tight because when you bump that with the brush, things start to happen. Where are we going? I'm just really strong. These muscles aren't just for show. All right, so on this side, you know, it's about halfway. It's not super, super firm, but I am seeing some. So if you were to sit there and think of it as like a 10 versus 30 versus 40, this is going to be like a mid-lift because I don't see tons of hair coming through, but there is some. And then as you get down through the end, a little bit higher application. I mean, heavier application. And then over here, what's cool about doing sections like this with the V is they don't have to match. Like you can really get artistic here and, you know, make one side really heavy if that side's closer to the face or the hairline, and then the other side of the V not quite as heavy. It's just all about what you want it to look like. So you have to approach this thinking about what you want the final look to look like. And then this time, instead of a full saturation, I'm really just going to do it on top because that's fine. That also works. That makes it so that we've got a nice bold highlight because it's the V, but it's not super ombre because underneath is not bleached all the way out through the lengths of the hair. One thing I do want to hit on as far as like relating this to haircuts, if somebody comes in and they're going to be getting a cut that is drastically different than what they're sitting down at, you might want to cut first because how you pull these sections, how you hold all this, their layering or their haircut, their whatever, is going to dictate what hair you're grabbing. So like this is a layered haircut right now. So as I'm highlighting it, I'm highlighting a layered haircut. But if I wash her out and she's getting like a blunt bob afterwards, it's not going to translate. It's not going to accent the haircut itself. It's going to accent the haircut that she walked in with. So in that consultation, figure out like if we're just kind of keeping the same shape and just trimming off the ends, all right, cool, then go for it. We're just going to, no big deal. You don't really have to change that much. But if it is going to be a very extreme change, because highlighting with a hand-painted technique works on every haircut. If it's a pixie or, you know, my hair, I actually am going to talk to Matt about highlighting his hair today. Don't tell him, but like also put the pressure on him.
Not going to happen.
It's going to happen. Let's get this. Let's get that t-shirt. No. Not going to happen, Brian. But it works for everything. You just need to have the general idea of the haircut that you are working on there. All right. I think I'm pretty good. Like I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to go, again, too much into where to put these. I really just wanted to go over how to put these. And I've hit consistency, elevation, saturation. Matt, do you have any questions?
All right. Do you prefer a stiffer application brush or softer one? There was a lot of questions about the brush.
So that one is really going to depend on the lightener that you use. There is going to be a growing pains period for you. Everyone's going to find their favorite. Some clay lighteners, like the Sunlight's Balayage, their brush is much stiffer because their lightener is much stiffer. So that works really well as far as working through the product and holding it and holding firm so that the hair can take the product off the brush. This particular lightener, the Sunlight's, it is a little bit softer and creamier of a lightener. So the fact that this brush is a nice, soft, feathery brush with a little bit of stiffness. Let's see. There you go. it gives me a little bit of give so that as I apply to the hair, it's not fighting to press down too hard into the hair. So if whatever lightener there's a lot of money and time has gone into R&D. So whatever company's lightener you're using, if they make a brush, try that one first, because there's a good chance that that's probably going to be the best one for whatever company you're using. I think that's a fair question. Good answer. I got that. I thought I had bleach on my face. What'd I do?
You do.
Balayage.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that was a good answer.
We're all getting highlights today. Well, because I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never said that before. That sounds good.
Oh, thanks, Renee. It's your apostrophe R-E.
He's that guy.
I lived with an English teacher for years. It happens. I'm sorry.
Everybody wants. I'm never gonna have blue highlights.
Blue highlights? I didn't even think about that. I just was thinking blonde.
Back in the day.
I've never seen you with fantasy color.
No, I mean it hasn't. High school, I had
Punk rock days.
Punk rock.
All right, so now I open it up to you guys. We got a little time left. I think I hit all the points that I wanted to as far as mixing, application, and all that goes. I want you to take that knowledge and create your own diagram, your own pattern on a head. Start with just 1 or 2 highlights on somebody if this is your first time and you're a little nervous. You don't have to go hard the first time. Take it easy. Dip your toes in and then build that comfort. And with that comfort, it's going to come speed and it's going to come the confidence to know that, you got this. I missed that question. What was that?
Yeah, it's coming back. I'm trying to...
How do you handle the hair getting wrapped up in the brush as you apply? That's a good question because it happens a lot on mannequins and it actually happens a lot on people. So I'll show you... I have a section right here. I'll kind of show you what that question is addressing is the fact that sometimes when you're working, when you go to move up, it's going to grab some hair. Let me try to grab a little. So it's going to grab some hair, and then when that happens, things start getting real messy real fast. So my advice, if you see that they've got hair, whether it's the haircut or what, that's starting to grab, don't go up, because that just sucks. If they've got the kind of hair that's grabby, then push it back into the section by just following through on your sweep. So apply, we've grabbed some hair. No, just smooth it back out into the section. Smooth it back out. Because, I forgot to say that. Balayage is French for sweeping. So just remember that. Just sweeping. And then when you pick it up, it goes right back down to where it's supposed to be, and then you can go right back to work. Great question, because I hate when that happens. But it's an easy fix.
Sherry says top placement is always confusing to me. Could you do a video on that one?
What do you mean top placement? I mean, yeah, I'll do everything. Oh, up here? Yeah. Totes. Next week, I think I'll be doing a little bit of that. We'll be touching on that next week.
Oh, sorry, my mic wasn't on. But just so you guys know, Brian is live. He'll be live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. doing these classes for color. So just make sure you tune in, set your alarm.
Come play with me.
Yeah. And then why don't you wear gloves?
Because I don't have nerves in my fingers. No, I'm just kidding. I don't wear gloves because the control freak in me, I want to feel every single hair so that as I travel down to the end, I know exactly how much hair is left in my fingers. I was the same way back when I used to work with the wand a lot. Every wand came with gloves, and I would cut the fingertips off of them, which defeats most of the purpose, because I just like to know how much hair is left as I'm traveling down, and I can't get that with gloves. And you can wear gloves. Do what you do.
The way that you were doing balayage, too, with the paddle, you're not really touching the lightener.
Yeah, I mean, I get a little bit that just happens naturally, but because that literally happens to everyone. This does not mean I'm messy. It just means I'm doing my job.
For me, when I do balayage, I'll have one of my hands will have a glove, the one that I kind of paint on too, because I don't use a paddle. So just kind of paint through it. But you use a paddle, so it kind of replaces that.
It's so funny. Matt's so good at knowing that he only needs one glove, but I can never remember which hand only needs the one glove. So like, say I'm about to run out of gloves, I only have one left. I inevitably always put it on the wrong hand.
Oh.
It's like I'll put it on the hand and then this one's covered in 6N. It's like, oh, come on.
And again, Brian's live every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
What is your advice for application around the face? We're going to be probably going over that next week, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do some stuff.
Yeah, just, think about where you're going. It's not so much, think about what kind of highlight you want. Are you just looking to do like a couple of bands like we did? Or are you looking for more of a dramatic flare like the V gives you?
Yep. And processing times?
That, I don't know. That's
Okay.
My bosses have been after me for years because when I book this, I book enough time so that if they're that person that takes 45 minutes to lift, I have it. Because it's different. It's different for everybody. It depends on what you're lifting. It depends on how light you want to go. It depends on if you've got the Bali wrap in between because that helps keep it moist so it keeps going and going and going. It depends if you want to put them under heat. It depends if you're leaving it out in the open. There is no one answer that covers that. So for you and your product and what you're using, just watch it, babysit it.
Yeah. And I think the number one thing would be if you look at because for me, it's not about the initial visit. So like when you book out, you could book out extra time because you don't know. Then once you know your client and you know that, then understand specific times. So when you do place them in your book, you're not just taking up too much time.
I mean,
that's like
but just know that starting out with this, you need a little wiggle room because you got to find your flow with this. This is a very organic, cool, chill, super involved process and technique. So get into it.
And
have the fun with it.
Another good thing to think about is that balayage lighteners kind of lie a little bit. So when you look at it, it might look a little bit lighter because
because it's white. Just like when you look in a foil and it's like, oh, it's white. And then you rinse, it's like, oh no, it's yellow.
Yeah. So just let it go maybe a little bit longer than you think. And the other good thing about balayage lighteners is it's very hard to over process.
Yeah.
They're open air highlight is harder.
Just in general, they're much gentler.
Yeah. Even with 40 volume. So
yeah. And then if you're throwing Olaplex or something in there, you're good.
That was another question, to use Olaplex.
I do. That's one thing that I definitely have to always go back in and add more powder because Olaplex is a very watery liquid that, I'll get my nice consistency and then I'll add my Olaplex and then it's too wet. So then I'll add more powder to get it back to the consistency that I'm comfortable working with.
Look, you already rebooked somebody, Michelle.
Yes.
She'll be here at 10 a.m.
Me too. Thanks, Michelle.
All right, I think we answered Alicia here. Yeah.
Beardlayage. That's funny.
So we didn't actually say exactly how much time, but just allow yourself some time. But what do you book for an initial visit? You've never met the person before.
If it's just balayage, I will not book less than 2 hours. If it's balayage and a haircut, I will not do less than 2.5. Because if there might be toning involved, there might be, and then even if that 2.5 hours, I mean, I have one client who comes in for balayage. I cannot do her in less than 4 hours because she's got hair down to her butt crack. And, that first time I booked 2.5 hours, it's like, all right, cool. I'm going to give you what I can get done in that amount of time. That's why it's good to know yourself and learn your skills and what you're able to create and what you're able to do, so you can be honest. Be like, yeah, I love your super long hair, but we're just going to do That's it? Oh, it is? All right. You want to see the lasagna? Put the noodles away. It's time for lasagna. So now you can see a little bit of what I was saying. Oops, nope. This side was my V's. Let me step back. Stop, don't look at my things. So over here where I did the V's, you see the hair travels from the dark into just pretty light through the ends. And then over here where I just did the bands, it's much more of a traditional highlighted look because it's got her base color worked in even all the way through the ends. sinister enough. Yeah, it was just something that I last week I said it's like a cooking show where I just take the noodles and I put the noodles in the oven, and then all of a sudden it's lasagna, because you're not going to sit here and watch it cook, because that's not fun. So there's my pile of noodles over there that I just put together for you, and then here's the delicious lasagna afterwards. So thank you guys so very much. I will see you next week, and I'll see you, come check me out on my Instagram. Hold on, I'm gonna do, hold on. Line it up. Should get a hat. Should get an @ tattoo right there on my wrist. So it's like really into it. Okay. Thank you guys. Mwah.